Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into something that's just, well, blown up in the Pokemon TCG world. We've got this stack of sources you send, market reports, podcast bits, all about the new set. Destined Rivals, Team Rocket's back. Yeah, and it's packed with data, values, forecasts. It's a lot. So our mission today, unpack it all, figure out the hype, the crazy market moves, and what it means for you, whether you're collecting, playing, or maybe looking at it as an investment. Okay, let's unpack this. What is it about Destined Rivals that's got everyone buzzing so much right from the get-go?
Well, it really boils down to one core thing: nostalgia. This set is just a huge celebration of Team Rocket. Characters people grew up with from the anime, the early games. It hits that emotional chord. That's the foundation for all this excitement.
Right, that nostalgia factor.
Exactly. And right away, that translates into these chase cards, the ones everyone's scrambling to pull. And yeah, number one, no question, is the Team Rocket's Mewtwo X, the special illustration rare version.
Ah, okay, the Mewtwo SR. We saw that everywhere in the sources. What makes that card the big one? It's not just Mewtwo's, right?
No, it's the art. These SIRs, they're like full card art pieces, really unique scenes. This one, it's got Mewtwo and Giovanni, the Team Rocket boss, together. The art's super detailed, very distinct, and the market, well, reports were showing it hitting like $400, maybe even more, right when the Japanese set launched.
Wow, $400 for one card
Yeah.
right out of the gate. That's a statement.
It really is. The Japanese version dropped mid-April, peaked around $56,800, which was roughly $380 then. But even before the English release, you saw U.S. pre-sales, eBay listings going for $350 up to nearly $500. It instantly became the Grail card. Maybe, potentially, the biggest card of this whole Scarlet and Violet era so far, easily double the next most valuable cards.
Okay, so that price difference tells a story.
It does. And look at the other Mewtwo X cards in the set for comparison. There's a gold hyper rare, looks cool, gold texture, but in Japan, only around $55. And the regular full art version, also a full illustration, but less rare. That was maybe $26 over there.
Okay, so that's crucial, right? If you just want to play the card, you can get one for, what, 20, 30 bucks.
Pretty much, yeah.
But if you want that specific art, the SR with Giovanni, you're paying hundreds more. It's purely about collecting it, the art itself.
Exactly. The massive premium is almost entirely driven by collectability, that unique artwork, not its use in the game. It really shows where the intense demand is focused. And beyond Mewtwo, you've got other valuable cards also linked to characters. The Giovanni RR. Around $50 in Japan, Ariana's SIR. Maybe $37, still good money, but nowhere near that Mewtwo.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting. Based on what we read, apparently Meowth is doing surprisingly well. Team Rocket's Meowth illustration rare.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating one. It's an illustration rare, or IR, so full art, but generally less rare than an SIR, but its price hit about $19 in Japan. Now, $19 isn't $400, but it's actually more expensive than most regular full art cards in the set.
Meowth beating out full arts. Well, just because it's Meowth.
Pretty much. It just shows the sheer power of that anime nostalgia. Meowth is iconic. Everyone knows Meowth. That popularity translates directly into demand from collectors, pushing its price above cards that are technically rarer or, stronger in the game. It's pure nostalgia driving it.
Okay, so a few big hits, then Meowth. What about the rest?
Well, there are a few others with some value, like a Gold Trainer card, Jamming Tower, maybe $18, $19, some full art Rocket members around $9, $11. But the reality is, like your sources point out, something like 98% of the cards in Destined Rivals are basically bulk, worth pennies. It's really just that small handful of chase cards creating all this market value we're seeing.
Okay, that makes sense for the singles market. Value's super concentrated. But the frenzy wasn't just singles, right? The sources talked about sealed product boxes, packs going absolutely nuts even before the English release date.
Oh, the sealed market was intense. All that demand for the chase cards meant people were desperate to just get their hands on anything sealed. Booster boxes first. Official price, say, from Pokémon Center was around 161 Center. Sold out instantly in pre-sale, like gone.
Instantly. Wow.
Yep. And then the secondary market, prices just shot up. Between $240, even over $270 for a box before the late May release. We saw early eBay sales hitting $260 to $270, almost double the suggested retail price. Shows how badly people wanted those boxes early.
Double MSRP before it even shipped. That's wild. What about elite trainer boxes, ETBs? Those are big collector items too, yeah.
Same story, maybe even crazier. Standard ETBs, the ones with packs, sleeves, dice, about $60 MSRP. The special Pokemon Center version with extra stuff, maybe $70, both gone, instantly sold out in pre-order.
Okay, And the secondary market.
Standard ETBs were hitting $100, $120 pretty quick. The Pokémon Center one, even higher, like $150, sometimes $175. One seller mentioned a specific $175 pre-sale on eBay right before release. That's like 2 or 3 times the official price. Just a huge signal of immediate demand.
Unbelievable. 2 to 3 times.
And even single packs. Before release, TCG players showed the average pack price around $11.50.
$11.50 for one pack, when they're officially like $4 or $5.
Exactly. It seems crazy, but it's that impatience, wanting to be first. Prices jumped like 20% in just a few weeks leading up to release. A lot of that was driven by live auction sites like whatnot, people paying huge premiums just to rip packs early and maybe hit that big card.
Yeah, I think I saw something about that.
Yeah, there was this anecdote going around, I think, on Reddit about a whatnot stream where someone pulled the big Mewtwo from cheap packs, and the host apparently had this huge over-the-top reaction yelling, "It's a $500 card." Then you could almost hear them trying to, like, walk it back live as the actual raw card prices started to dip a little from the absolute peak. It just captures that whole emotional intensity, the frenzy around opening this set right now.
Wow. Yeah, that really paints a picture. Okay, so that was the pre-release madness. Now that Destined Rivals is actually hitting shelves in English, end of May. What happens next? We saw the Japanese market launch back in mid-April, so that gives us some clues, right?
Exactly. Japan was our preview. We saw that initial price spike right after release the Mewtwo SIR, hitting that $56,800, about $380 mark.
Right.
But then, after a few weeks, as more packs got open, more supply hit the market, we saw what the sources call price moderation. Reports showed Mewtwo SIR sales settling down into the $40,000, $45,000 range. That's closer to $250, $300. We saw U.S. sellers listing ungraded ones around that price, too. Even a graded one, a CGC 10, which is like a perfect grade, sold for about $358 in mid-May. That suggests even perfect raw copies weren't quite holding that absolute peak price.
Okay, so a bit of a cool down.
Yeah, and we should expect something similar for the English release. Those pre-launch prices, the $400 Mewtwo, $270 boxes, they were definitely inflated by hype and really limited early supply. Once more product actually hits the stores after May 30th, it's very likely we'll see prices dip, especially on the cards that got caught up in that pre-release speculation. The top chase cards will stay expensive, sure, but probably stabilize a bit lower than that absolute peak hype price.
That makes sense. We've seen that before, haven't we?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time with popular sets for member celebrations. The Charizard card started near $100, then dropped to maybe $70 within a month as more people opened it. A similar pattern seems pretty likely here.
Okay, so singles might cool off a bit from the absolute fever pitch. What about the sealed stuff? Those boxes and ETBs that were double or triple MSRP. Will those prices drop too?
Well, it's more volatile. It really depends heavily on one big thing, how much more the Pokemon Company decides to print. If they do big reprints and you start seeing boxes on shelves at Target or Walmart closer to MSRP, then yeah, those secondary market prices like $250 plus for a box will almost certainly drop, maybe back towards $180, $200 perhaps.
Right, supply and demand.
Exactly. We saw it with Champions Path ETBs back in 2020. They were hard to find, selling for $90, $100. Then Pokemon did more print runs, and bam, the price dropped to $50, $60, much closer to retail. If Destined Rivals gets printed heavily to meet this obvious demand, a similar drop in sealed prices is definitely possible, especially a few weeks or months after launch.
But what if they don't reprint heavily?
Well then, if demand stays super high and supply remains tight, prices could stay elevated or even keep climbing over time. That uncertainty is just part of the game.
Gotcha. And what about that collector versus player thing we talked about? Does that influence things going forward?
Yeah, it's still relevant. Like we said, the initial push is huge collector nostalgia for Team Rocket. That's why Meowth is doing well. But that Mewtwo X card is potentially strong for playing the game. Its power saver ability is pretty good. Players were already interested before release. The regular non-fancy version was actually the priciest double rare. So if Mewtwo becomes a staple in winning decks...
Yeah, then players will want it too.
Right, and that demand from players helps keep the price of the cheaper versions up. And weirdly, that can also help support the value of the collectible ones, like the SIR. We saw that with Lugia V from Silver Tempest. Great card to play, and its alt-art version became incredibly expensive, partly because the card itself was so popular in decks.
Okay, interesting dynamic. So how does this set compare to older ones? You mentioned comparisons to sets like Hidden Fates or Celebrations.
Yeah, those are good comparisons. They're also nostalgic celebratory sets,
Oh,
and they tend to follow a market cycle, big launch hype,
Hmm.
and then prices often dip as more product hits the market, saturation happens. And then gradually, sometimes significantly, prices start climbing again after the set goes out of print, or OOP, when they
Right.
stop making it.
Once it gets harder to find.
Exactly. Look at the numbers in the sources. Hidden Fates ETBs were maybe $80 a year after release. Now they're $300 plus because they haven't been reprinted in years. Celebrations was printed more heavily, so its ETBs stayed around $75 for a while. But now, 3.5 years later, they're climbing past $150.
So history suggests that even if Destined Rivals cools off now, it could gain value long term.
It definitely could if people still love it down the line, and if supply tightens up eventually. That's the pattern we've seen with successful nostalgic sets.
Okay, this is a lot. Huge hype, high prices now, likely dip soon, but then maybe long-term growth like past hits. So let's bring it back to the listener. What does this mean if you're thinking about this set maybe as an investment? Is it the next Evolvings, guys, or is it a hype trap?
It means being cautious but informed. For those big chase cards, especially that Mewtwo SR, yeah, there's a real chance it becomes the grail card of the Scarlet and Violet era, like Umbreon VMAX from Evolving Skies.
Okay.
After that likely dip, maybe it stabilizes around $300 for a raw card, give or take. But long term, 3, 5, 7 years out, if this set becomes legendary, like the Team Rocket set, a top-graded version, PSA 10, could easily be $400, maybe much more. But that depends on things like how many get open versus hoarded. Does Mewtwo actually become a competitive beast? Those are key variables.
And the other says, Giovanni, Ariana?
More moderate potential, probably. Giovanni might climb from $50 towards $80, $100 in a few years. But the sources noted these villain trainers often don't reach the crazy heights of, say, popular female trainer cards, the so-called waifu cards. Although, a wild card could be if Team Rocket pops up again prominently in a new game or anime. That could definitely boost interest in these specific cards later.
Makes sense. What about cards like Meowth?
Meowth IR. That's interesting. Currently around $18. While most cheap IRs stay cheap, Meowth has that pure nostalgia fuel. Could it be a $30 plus card in 5 years? Possibly. Think about vintage Dark Charizard. Once cheap, now worth hundreds purely on long-term nostalgia. Meowth could potentially follow that path, but it takes years.
Okay, singles have potential, but require patience or getting lucky. What about sealed? The boxes, the ETBs.
Right now, buying a dox at $250 plus is definitely paying that hype premium. There's real risk. If they reprint heavily, that price could easily drop back towards $150, $180. You could be holding it at a loss for a while.
Ouch.
But if you're willing to hold for years, the long-term potential is strong. Popular sets with big chase cards do tend to become desirable when sealed and OOP. People love opening old stuff. Evolving Skies went from $120 to $300 plus in about 2 years. Hidden Fates sealed is super sought after.
So Destined Rivals could follow that path.
It could, absolutely, if it eventually goes out of print and isn't just endlessly reprinted. Reprints are possible since it's a standard set. But even Evolving Skies saw huge demand initially, pushing prices up before it went OOP. The analysis suggests that finding boxes closer to MSRP, maybe under $150 if prices dip big, offers a much better long-term entry point. At $250 plus sold, the risk is higher, and the wait for profit might be much longer if reprints happen.
And the ETBs.
Similar story. Sealed ETBs, especially the Pokémon Center exclusive one, could be great long-term holds. Hidden Fates ETBs went from $50 to over $300. Celebrations are now climbing past $150. The trend is up after they stop making them.
But reprints are a risk there too.
Definitely. Pokemon does restock ETBs. Celebrations got reprints, which kept prices down longer. If Destined Rivals ETBs get restocked, people who paid peak hype prices will need serious patience.
So looking way down the road.
Yeah, 5+ years out, assuming the set is remember fondly. Sealed ETBs should definitely cross $100 again, maybe much more for the rarer versions, like $200 plus. That follows the path of past hits. And, the history is there. The original 2000 Team Rocket set, legendary now. Boxes cost thousands. EX Team Rocket returns from '04, also iconic, expensive. The name Team Rocket just has that pull.
Right, but there's a catch with modern sets, isn't there?
Yeah.
Compared to vintage.
Huge catch. That's critical. Vintage had much smaller print runs, very few sealed boxes survived. Destined Rivals is hitting a massive market where tons of people are already buying sealed boxes purely to hoard as investments. So future supply won't be nearly as scarce as vintage. That could definitely slow down how fast prices rise compared to those old sets.
And the overall market matters too, right? Like the economy.
Absolutely. We saw the COVID bubble, then corrections, predicting market sentiment, collector spending habits years from now. It's tough. External factors absolutely play a role.
But the demand now is undeniable.
Oh, yeah. Sellouts, the online buzz, those crazy buying stories. It points to real, significant interest, even if some of it is that initial hype bubble. And your sources really nail this. You need a critical approach. Anyone saying a set can't lose value, be super skeptical.
Right.
We saw those forum comments, newbies saying it'll only go up, versus experienced folks urging caution, like too early to tell, don't just jump on the bandwagon.
That caution sounds wise.
It is. Investing here can work, but there are real risks. Overprinting, shifting trends. Destined Rivals looks promising, but no guarantees, especially at these peak prices.
So short-term correction likely. Midterm maybe stable or lower depending on prints. Long-term, if it stays loved, prices should rise, especially sealed, but maybe slower than vintage.
That seems like the most probable trajectory, yeah.
Yeah.
Best returns likely for those who got in near MSRP, not peak hype. Risks are real hype could fade, could be overprinted, market could cool.
Okay, let's wrap this up. What's the bottom line here?
Bottom line, Destined Rivals has huge potential, fueled by Team Rocket nostalgia and some killer chase cards. But the current market is hot, volatile, prices reflect a lot of hype. Long-term growth is possible, maybe even likely, if the set becomes a classic and supply tightens after it's out of print. But it's not a sure thing. Patience, understanding the market, critical thinking, all crucial if you're looking at this as more than just collecting for fun.
That was a great deep dive. We've really peeled back the layers on the hype, the market moves, the potential future based on history, and this set's specifics. Hopefully, you now have a much clearer picture of what's going on with Destined Rivals. And here's a final thought to chew on based on everything we discussed. We see this pattern. Nostalgic sets gain value long-term once they're OOP. But right now, you've got dedicated collectors wanting the cards forever and short-term speculators just trying to flip product quickly. How does that tension, that balance between long-term holders and short-term flippers, ultimately shape where prices go for a set like this? Is this initial peak the highest it'll be for years, or just the start of a very long, maybe slow climb? Something to think about as you watch this market unfold.